Welcome to Democrats of Greater Tucson. Our Monday show is now a Tuesday show because of Labor Day. We're joined here by Joshua Polacheck, who is running for our state chair, our Arizona Democratic Party state chair. So why don't you introduce yourself to folks who may not know you, Josh, and tell us about your campaign.
Sure. So my name is Joshua Polacheck. I am running to be the chair of the Arizona Democratic Party. If you are a state committee member, you will have already gotten or will soon be receiving a phone call from me. I am trying to reach out to all the voters. Um, I am someone who grew up all across the West. My parents were in the Indian Health Service, so I attended reservation schools all the way through elementary school. And then my parents moved to Tucson when I was in middle school, and it became their forever home. So I did middle school and high school here in Tucson. Left to study, got a history degree and with a minor in mathematics and writing. And right after college, I was commissioned into the United States Foreign Service and spent nearly 20 years serving the country in really wonderful places, including Beirut and Kingston, New Delhi, but also some challenging places like Kandahar, Islamabad, and Mosul. Um, but I expected to be a lifer, expected to spend my whole career serving the country. After the 2016 election, I realized that my oath to the Constitution demanded that I return home and fight for democracy back stateside. So I got a quick degree, transition degree, a master's degree in public administration, and then came back home in 2018. Helped my father through the last year of his life in 2019, and then was recruited to run the Pima County Democratic Party as their executive director in the 2020 cycle. We had a historic year that year. I know a lot of people here on this call worked really hard. You gave a lot of your blood, sweat, and tears, your time, and your money to that effort, and it was the most successful effort in Pima County history. I'm really proud to have been part of that joint effort to mobilize the community here in Southern Arizona. We got really close to taking back the legislature, but we were also the tipping point state for sending Biden and Harris to the White House, and of course, then candidate and now Senator Kelly to the Senate. Um, and in 2024, after taking some time to be a full-time dad, I realized that my time in politics was not done, and I ran to be one of your nominees for the Arizona Corporation Commission. I ran with Jonathan Hill, who's running again. I encourage everyone on this call to sign his petition and give your $5. That's the only public endorsement I'm making as a board member of the state party. I got behind Jonathan before I was elected to the state board. And then Eleni Aguilar. So the three of us ran. It was a great team. We had some good support from the state party, but there was a lot more that the state party could have done to help down ballot races. And not just Corporation Commission, but down ballot races that weren't on the ADLCC's target list, down ballot races that weren't on the DCCC's red to blue congressional map, and down ballot races at the city council, the school board, and the county level. So I'm running to be your next state chair because this is not a normal historical moment. Well, let's see. I can't quite see everybody with the grid I have, but raise your hand if you think this is a normal moment in American history. I don't see any hands raised. And so we need two things. We need both basic competency in the state party. That's something that I think a lot of the fellow candidates that are running for this position can offer. I'm really proud to have signed a unity pledge with the majority of the other candidates for this position. Um, but I think what I'm bringing is that basic competency that we need to run the party, but also a recognition that this is not a normal historical moment, that we need to use tactics that we might not have used in a long time, that we might need to use tactics that are new, and that we need to be fighting for every single vote in this state and reaching every voter, even people who might have been a Trump voter and are now finally seeing the damage that he's doing to the party or doing to the country, and are willing to come to our side. But we also have to go to the people that have been Democratic voters their entire voting lives and make sure that we are proud and fearless Democrats, that we are providing a positive vision of what it means when Democrats are in charge and how the lives of working and middle class people, especially union members, get better. It's not just about rising prices, it's about that the wages are too damn low. Yes, rent is too damn high. Yes, the grocery bills are too damn high, but we need to make sure that Arizona is a place where you can get a nice, solid middle class wage and you can raise your family with a sense of security and safety without having to worry that your boss is going to bring in a bunch of AI robots to do the roofing or something. I guess beyond that, I live here in Tucson, right across from Robbins Elementary. I got a middle schooler, I'm married, and I like to rock climb.
And you like to go to Comic-Con, apparently.
Yeah, well, I didn't get to go to Comic-Con because I was doing Labor Day stuff this weekend with my labor family. I am a retired union member and a former shop steward when I was in the Foreign Service.
Alrighty. Joe, it looks like we're ready to head into our questions period.
Susan Heck wants to know, what does your t-shirt say?
I am trying to get it in. It says, no kings, no cowards.
Catherine, you had a question for Joshua?
I have two questions. My first one has to do with Sue Heck's chat. I hadn't heard Click wanted to back down. Did I miss something?
We've just been hearing rumors after last week. So we're, there are people that talk there, even in Tucson, there's still people that talk to both sides. And the rumor was that he's calling some of his sort of neutral political people that aren't hardcore MAGA, and asking them if they think the support for Siscomani is going to spark a Tesla takedown type of event, because it's really done a lot of damage to the Tesla brand. And above and beyond his loyalty to the Pima County Republican Party, Jim Click's loyalty is to his bank account.
Yeah, I was at that demonstration last Wednesday. My question for you is, how are you going to address or push back against, for lack of a better expression, the corporate wing of the DNC? Nancy Pelosi, the fact that the two New York congresspeople have not endorsed Mamdani. A lot of us are, not even wanting to call ourselves Democrats anymore, even though that's the way we vote. And so a younger, there are progressives in the party, but they've been silenced by these people over time. And I'm just wondering where you stand on that whole issue.
Yeah, I think as I said during my framing of this talk, that this is not a normal historical moment, right? We are not in a time where we are arguing over marginal tax rates and whether the corporate tax rate should be 29% or 23%.
Yeah.
This is not a normal time. We basically have a communist in the White House who's demanding that corporations sign over a VIG to the federal government to be allowed to do business, where not a broad industrial policy, which I think our country needs, but like basic corporate operating and basic business operating is at the whims of someone who has clearly said he's a wannabe dictator. And so I believe that the Democratic Party is the best and last chance that we have to bring back the America that never yet was. And that means we need folks from Joe Walsh. I don't know if you know Joe Walsh. He's a former Tea Partier. He was a huge supporter of mine. He came and did a lot of campaigning in Arizona last September and October. We need, and he's endorsed Mamdani. This is a blue no matter who situation. And so whatever the local Democratic electorate feels best represents their Democratic Party, I trust those voters. And I trust those voters, whether we're looking to try to find somebody like Diane Abernathy, who was a longtime state senator in Cochise County, a Democrat, and she served from 1998 till 2008. During the Bush takeover, when our party almost totally collapsed in this state at the beginning of the century, and she was able to hold on to Cochise County. I'm sure the message that she was delivering to her community is different than somebody like Annalisa Ortiz. But those two people, if we are in the same caucus, we can figure out how to make a better Arizona, a better community, and a stronger democracy and a stronger republic. And so for me, it's a blue no matter who. If I am honored to be elected as chair, I'm going to be fighting for all Democrats. Whether you're somebody who's I don't know, a corporate lawyer, or whether you're somebody who's in the IBW and an electrician in Pinell County. There's more that unites us than divides us. And I really want to move beyond this idea that there are factions within the party and only one faction can win. We all need to be in this together, because if not, we see what the other side is offering. And that also means we need to be offering and have clear visions of what it means to be a Democrat. Does that answer your question, Catherine?
Not entirely.
Okay.
Partially.
Okay.
I guess what I want to know.
Hold my feet to the fire. I want to be a chair that's accountable and is able to have vigorous conversations with our members.
Okay. That part I understand, but I don't want to minimize the power that the upper echelon has in the DNC. Now that's federal, of course, and I know that you're running, here, but they really need people need to push back against that. And a lot of people have left the Democratic Party because of that. So, it's a problem. I used to define myself as a Democrat, but it's not, even though I vote Democratic, it's not the first word I would use now to define myself. It would be, well, it doesn't matter what it would be.
Right.
But you hear what I'm saying? They have undue control over a lot in the party, and it needs to be addressed. Bernie's addressing it, obviously. Other, national figures are, but it's of great concern, and I don't think we should minimize it. That's all I just wanted feedback from you on that.
Yeah, no, and I hear very much what you're saying. And, we have to make sure that we are representing not just the full breadth of Democrats, but the full breadth of America, right?
Absolutely.
And that, ultimately the message that we bring of a pro-working class, pro-middle class party is there are 99% of us and there's 1% of them, right? And it's not my idea. It's a friend told me this, but the last 10 years, the elections have been the billionaires versus America, and the billionaires are winning. And
Right.
we as Democrats need to get our act together, get our S together to be able to fight back against that. That means we have to be proud of being a party that has roots in organized labor, right? We have to be proud to be a party that has roots in civil rights. I'm not going to be a chair that says, oh, well, the Arizona Restaurant Association doesn't want me talking about one fair wage because they want to keep paying tipped workers 25% less than they pay other workers just because they happen to get tips. That's BS. And so we as a party need to be comfortable and fearless about getting behind things like one fair wage, getting behind things like repealing of right to work, right? We should have an Arizona PRO Act. Why do, like that is in our platform. That means people have signed off on it. It doesn't matter if you're part of the corporate wing or the DSA wing of the Arizona Democratic Party. That's our platform, is to get rid of right to work. So next time there's an effort, a citizen's effort to get it on the ballot, let's fight for it. Let's get the party vocally behind it. Same with one fair wage. It is complete BS that the Republicans were able to get something on the ballot that said that tipped workers got 25% less than everybody else. The no vote on 138 was the single most popular thing on the ballot in 2024, and our party could not get behind it and could not nail Warren Peterson's behind to that proposition.
Absolutely.
It lost in his district, in his LD. 138 lost. Why didn't every single person in that LD know that he put that on the ballot? Right? That's a failure of us. And we need to accept our failures and work on it and do better. And that's something you're going to see when I'm chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've got
Sorry for getting so
Gail.
animated about it. Like, I brought up getting behind the Arizonans Work Together, which is the repeal of right to work, at my very first state committee meeting 2 years ago, and it went to the rules committee and died. And I'm still sore about that.
Well, let's do it again.
Okay. We've got some people who like to ask some questions, and
Yep.
we've got Gail's ready to go and Allison's ready to go. Gail, why don't you take it with you there?
Hi, Gail.
Okay. Hi, Joshua. I saw you yesterday. I'm sorry I didn't get much of a chance to say hello. You looked awfully busy. Just quick question. How and in what, sign us some specifics of it. How do you distinguish yourself from the other candidates who are running for state committee chair?
That's a great question. I think I'm bringing a three-pronged stool. So I like to tell this story about how when I was running for Corporation Commission, I knew that I had to spend, 4 to 6 hours a day raising money. And I did that 6 days a week. I spent probably over 1,300 hours on call time. I can get the exact numbers if you want, Gail. But I understood that. But I also understood that I had to make a connection with the volunteers. And we were able to go from a campaign that started with just one campaign manager to a 9-person team in a 9-person paid staff in a matter of 5 months, with dozens of volunteers working for the campaign across the state. And the way that I did that was having these human-to-human conversations, these person-to-person conversations. But the final thing that I think I brought to that race, and that I generally, I think distinguishes me, is that for the very first time, as far as I can search their archives, I don't have a complete access to the Wall Street Journal's archives. They did a profile on the Arizona Corporation Commission race. And they did a profile showing that because the Corporation Commission was in the pocket, not of big business, but in the pocket of big oil and utilities, it was going to be bad for business. Not only was it going to be bad for homeowners and renters and schools, because the Corporation Commission really loves this sneaky thing of jacking the rates up extra high for schools because there's nobody advocating for that. But also for small businesses and medium-sized businesses. And so I was able, the only reason they did that is because my network within the media from my past as a spokesperson for the State Department, I was able to pitch the story to the Wall Street Journal and get them to come out to Arizona, talk to everyday voters, talk to small business owners, and do a profile of the race and a profile of me. We need to change the narrative. We just heard from Catherine that she votes Democratic, her values are aligned with us, but she doesn't identify as a Democrat anymore. And that is a pretty common thing, unfortunately. Our approval rating, we hear, oh, Trump's so bad, Trump's so bad. He's 10 points underwater in Arizona. That means we're just going to skate to victory. The Democratic Party in Arizona is 33 to 45 points underwater. We're talking about, depending on the survey, somewhere from a 35 to a 23% approval rating in this state. We need to proactively go out and connect with those voters. We need to get back into places like Cochise and figure out how Diane was able to be a state senator for 10 years in the middle of baby Bush. And part of that is you have a commitment from me to having a 15-county, 30 LD strategy where I'm going to be fighting in every county, in every LD to rebuild that trust with Democrats. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, Allison, you're up.
Thank you so much. Yes, I need a button once more that says Proud Democrat on it. I like being called a Democrat, and I'd like to wear a Proud Democrat button all the time. But that's not my question. It's about our platform. You know, being the state party chair, and I appreciate your values very much, Joshua. I'm with you all the way there. That puts you also in the DNC uh, as party chair,
Yep.
and so that brings me to the issue of the larger DNC platform as well as the state platform. What's missing here, and why are we taking such a licking in the press? We Democrats, we're just taking a licking in the media. So I'm hoping you get to the DNC, you can start dealing with this issue of media coverage of Democrats and also deal with platform issues at both state and national levels.
Do you have a specific platform issue you're thinking about? I mean, for me, the
No,
big,
I'm interested in your
yeah.
opinion. What might be missing?
I mean, the big thing is that at least for me, and maybe this is just, the retired union brother in me, is that we need to embrace our union roots. We need to embrace our working class roots. And yeah, some people, worked in a factory. I worked in a factory after college. I carried a lot of heavy things in a ceramics factory. Um, but a lot of the people that need a union to help protect them are folks like the United Care Alliance, which is trying to unionize domestic and service workers. You know that the largest um, uh, segment of our population that has almost zero organized labor in it is the service sector. And because of that, you've got management and bosses taking advantage of people day to day. And I think part of what we need to do as a party is help, is present a platform for why it doesn't matter if you are a farm worker out there picking lettuce in Yuma, if you are somebody working the graveyard shift at a QT gas station in Phoenix or Arizona, or if you're a adjunct professor because you're treated more like contract labor than you are as an actual professor teaching at NAU or Prescott College. That we're all in this together, and that means we need a government that's looking after the people and not looking after the billionaires and the corporations.
That reminds me, at one time I was on the DNC, and the biggest challenge I had in going to those meetings was the costs of
Yeah.
transportation and hotels. Are you prepared for that?
Well, so currently we have a budget to make sure that our DNC members, so we've got 3 elected DNC members, well, 5, I guess, the chair and the vice chair, and then 3 elected DNC members, and then 3 appointed ones. We have budget in the state party for that travel.
I see.
And
Okay.
I guess this is a good segue into the budget. The budget is pretty dire. I want to really commend Acting Chair Kim Curry for getting a budget passed that addresses the financial realities, but we need to change those financial realities. We need to go from being a party that is scraping by with a few $100,000 a year. If we're going to be a top 3 swing state, that means we need to raise money like we're a top 3 swing state. That means we need to be raising like $5 to $10 million a year. And a lot of that is on the chair, but a lot of that is also making sure that we have a professional staff similar to a top level campaign that is bringing in the resources, not just internally, but nationwide. And I think, that's something where I might, answering the previous question, that differentiates me a little bit from some of the other folks is I think Arizona can have a national fundraising base. That we are a state that provides a really compelling story to the rest of the country. and to Democrats, whether you're in Washington, D.C., or Washington State, or even Democrats in red states that might feel like there's no hope if you're a Democrat in Wyoming or Idaho or something. And Arizona can be that model for a path back to a constitutional rule of law system, because the Republicans here have just gone so far, so into the deep end. You know, um, our state constitution, it's a great constitution. You know, you got to give it to the Republican progressives 100 years ago. They guaranteed that public education in this state should be as free as possible. And that's just not, K-6, because people are like, oh, people only went to elementary school back in the day. It's not K-12. It's K through university. Public education should be as free as possible. And one of the ways that the Republican legislature over the last 50 years of control has skirted around that is by deferring maintenance to our public schools. $5 billion in deferred maintenance. There are schools, whether we're talking in Central Mesa, we're talking in Quartzsite, we're talking along the border in Douglas, where their HVAC systems aren't working even as kids have been back at school for a month now, where there's paint peeling on the walls. There's still lead remediation that needs to be done in Arizona public schools. $5 billion worth of deferred maintenance. And they're like, oh, we can't find the money. We can't find the money. Yet they're able to find $1 billion a year to give to their millionaire buddies to send their kids to Brophy. That's just not right. That's an issue where that unites, how many people are getting vouchers in this state? Maybe a few tens of thousands at most. They are stealing our tax dollars and giving us a big middle finger and saying, your public schools don't matter. And I think that's something where we as Democrats that is fertile ground for us to be going on the offense. Does that answer your question, Allison? And yes, when I become a DNC member, I plan to make sure that we are fighting for union rights. We are fighting to make sure that we are the party of the working and the middle class, that we are the party of good wages, affordable costs, and union rights and the right to organize.
Way to go. Thank you.
Okay, anything in the chat there, Mike?
So S.E. Kravitz wants to know well, it's a bit of a long question, but I'm going to just do it verbatim. In CD1, we have 9+ candidates running against Schweikert. We have basically 2 months after the primary for the Dem candidate to get name policy recognition. 2 of this year's candidates include a candidate who did not win the primary 2 years ago and the Dem candidate who lost by a wider margin than the candidate 2 years prior. How do you, as a leader of the party, give the message to these candidates that we need one strong, viable Dem candidate to flip the seat, who can campaign 6 months to a year out, not people with little to no experience? Some of these people may be good candidates in the future when it is not as critical to flip Schweikert's seat.
Well, so not only do we have a lot of candidates, but a lot of those candidates are friends of mine. And right now, the bylaws do not allow for the party or the chair to intervene in competitive primaries except for re-elections. I think that's my understanding of how we're able to support Chris and Katie and Adrian. This is a case where I think having those relationships and being able to have frank conversations in private, none of this should be public, but having frank conversations in private. Allison, I see that question. That's a great question. Are really talking about people like, what's your path to viability? And I think as a former candidate and a former statewide candidate, I think that's something that I can really bring to the table. And part of the other thing that I think the state party can and should be doing is there were over 200 positions in Arizona in 2024 that nobody ran for. No Democrat ran for, nobody ran for. That's a way to get our foot in the door as Democrats running for these water districts, running for school boards, running for conservation districts across the state. We have a strong message of community and building a better, a more stronger union for our state rather than the Republican message of burn it all down, you're all in it for yourself. So I know that Arizona List and Emily's List, and I know that I got some training from some of the energy reform groups, but I think the state party needs to be out there providing that training on how to fundraise, how to do media, how to run a campaign on just a pure corporate management level, how to find good staff, train the campaigns, do a lot of talent spotting. And I think that's something where the state party is uniquely positioned, and something like the Copper State Victory Fund, which I'm looking forward to working with as state chair, which is the coordinated campaign in 2024. I think we have an opportunity to really have a strong differentiation of tasks. And, the state party is there to build the infrastructure, not just for 2026, but for 2026, 2028, and 2040. And part of that is making sure we do talent spotting, we train people up, we get people the help they need. One of the things that I've been suggesting, and I hope, regardless of who wins, they take up that the state party would do, is have joint fundraisers with county parties and LDs and Democratic clubs, right? Let's figure out some way so that we can build up those relationships between donors with groups like DJT, with really vital campaign committees like Legislative District 16, which is my LD, where I'm a state committee member. A lot of these are new districts where people are thrown together. And it's sometimes, we're like, well, who's even going to run for these seats? And we need to make sure that every single LD in this state looks like the strong LDs. I know we've got several strong LDs in the Tucson area and the Phoenix area, and we need to make sure that that is replicated across the state.
Okay, Mike, we have some questions in the chat room.
Yeah, I think Allison got her question addressed there about the candidate training school, and if not, how can one be established? I do have a question for Josh myself, in fact. My question would be a bit more brass tacks about the actual job, the bureaucratic job of being ADP chair.
Yeah.
And that is, what programs do you see that are currently in place in the ADP that need to go away, and which ones aren't there that really need to be there? And secondly, how are you going to fund it? How are you going to staff it?
Right. Well, currently we're not doing a lot. We are down to from I think a high of 12 staffers. We're down to 4 core staff. We are really on a skeleton staff right now, so that we pull up from our nosedive and we are at least flying level. So at this point, we're not doing a lot that I would eliminate. There are some things that we have done in the past that, I'm not so sure are the best use of our resources.
Okay.
I think there's a lot better ways to do new voter registration rather than paying staff to stand at a corner at a university on the new student day. It's not 1988. It's not even 2008. Our first and top priority for voter registration, in my mind, is to get the somewhere between 200 and 450,000 voters who are on the inactive voter list that we know already have a history of voting. We know are already registered. They just need to be reactivated, and we have their contact information for. And we know that because we've seen this with some of the LDs, like LD8 has been very effective at this, is really all you got to do is text the people and say, hey, do you know you're not on the active voter list anymore, that you got kicked off? Here's the link to reactivate yourself. And when you're doing that in-person new voter registration of trying to get 18-year-olds to vote, that can be pricey, like $150 to $200 per voter pricey.
Yeah.
Reactivating an inactive voter can, especially through relational texting, can be as cheap as 50 cents a voter. And so, there's a pool of fish that are already in the barrel. Let's go fishing with them with dynamite, right? And then we can switch to getting the new voters back or bringing the new voters into the political process. One of the other things that I think we really need a strong program at is having consistent messaging that comes out of wait, which price, Mike? The price for the new voter registration or the texting people to get them? It does cost money to text people.
Yeah,
Um,
new voters.
and
It means.
and
Yeah, but
it does.
150 per kid. Can you just break that down for me?
Yeah, so you're paying staffers to stand out, and you're paying them usually $25 to $30 an hour, depending on the union contract. And unfortunately, about 1 in 3 of the even if you get new voters, only about 1 in 3 of them is going to be a Democrat, even at a college in a college setting. And so it can often be where they're working an 8-hour shift and they're getting maybe 1.5 to 2 new Democrats per shift.
I just understood in my limited time here that many of those people are volunteers. That's why I was confused.
Oh yeah, no, I'm saying when you do paid organizers to do
I
it.
know. I'm cool now. Sorry, just confused.
Yeah. And then the texting, you do have to pay data to text and stuff, and that's where you get to sort of the 50 cents to $5 to get an inactive voter back on the rolls. So back to the messaging, I do think the state party should be putting out a talking points memo on the regular. I would hope that by the time I'm chair and it's August, September, we're doing that on the daily basis. And that's getting out not just to LD chairs and county chairs, but all the way down to our PCs so that people know, like, here's the thing, here's the issue of the day. Let's get this out on social media. Let's get this as part of the conversation when I'm talking to my neighbors and my relatives and my friends. Probably that would probably start off as a weekly or bi-weekly thing as we're ramping up in this time period. But we need to get that into the narrative bloodstream of the state. We need to start talking about how vouchers, they are stealing our tax dollars, right? Let's stop letting them, they keep framing this as these opportunity or I forget what it stands for, but they call it opportunity scholarships, right? Educational savings accounts. They are stealing our tax dollars. No, there are very few people who put in as much in their tax dollars as they're getting back in these ESA vouchers. They're stealing our tax dollars. Don't call it the big ugly bill. Call it the MAGA murder bill, because that's what it's going to do. The hospitals that are going to be closing, we're looking at 5 to 15 rural hospitals closing over the next 2 years because of the MAGA murder bill. Think of the people that are going to be dying in places like Miami and Window Rock, because instead of their hospital being half an hour away, they're having to drive 3 or 4 hours to Flagstaff or Phoenix or Tucson to get the care that they need. We're also like, let's be Americans, and like, we had a leadership role in the world. The cancellation of that's costing Americans pennies on the dollar, the Food for Peace program, millions are going to starve over the next decade because of Trump and his MAGA murder allies in Congress.
True.
Oh, and how am I going to pay for it?
Yeah.
Three-pronged stool. First, the chair needs to get back and grind call time. We raised $35 in call time in the month of June. That is unacceptable. The chair needs to be doing 20 to 30 hours a week on the phones. So that's the first and foremost thing. That's the thing I can control directly. Second is rebuild the relationship with what we call our trustees. Our major union supporters, our major tribal nation supporters, our major supporters in advocacy groups like the Plaintiffs Bar, environmental groups, civil rights groups, immigrant rights groups. They provided nearly half of our funding in the last cycle, and we've gotten I think things are a lot better. But for the first 6 months of the year, we got maybe $10,000 or $20,000 from them, as opposed to nearly $1 million in previous years. And the final part is building a broad base. And that means we need to make sure that the Arizona Democratic Party is a known brand within our state, but also nationally. We need to be getting out there, the chair, our candidates, like, let's get Annalise out on Blog for America and talking about how great it is to be an Arizona Democrat and what it's like to be fighting back against these jackbooted thugs who are not going out and arresting MS-13 gang members at Home Depot, right? They're going and picking up landscapers. Like, let's call them on their BS and let's build our brand nationally, and that will allow us to have a broad base of 2- and 3-figure donors from Idaho to Illinois to Maine.
Thanks, Josh.
Okay, Pat has her hand up.
Thank you. So Joshua, we're talking about funding. You expand on the relationships between our Arizona Democratic Party, the ADLCC, and Copper State.
I was just about to ask that. Good question.
Yeah. So do you want me to talk about the financial relationship or the broader working relationship?
How about both?
Right.
Both are fine.
Okay, yeah. So financially, and I think this is something that we could have done a better job at communicating under previous boards and previous chairs. A lot of the money that was raised under the ADP umbrella, the state party umbrella, was actually coordinated party expenditures or money that was raised for a specific candidate or a specific organization like the ADLCC. And that was not really money that could be used for party operations and party building. All of that money, as far as I know, I do have to talk to our treasurer. All of that money, I believe, is now with the Copper State Leadership Fund. I'm sorry, the Copper State Victory Fund. And they are going to be focusing, and the ADLCC financially has also moved to the coordinated campaign. That doesn't mean that we can't work together. It just means that's the bank accounts, instead of living within an ADP-owned bank account that is walled off and can't be used for operations, is now going to live in a separate entity. And on some level, this actually cleans things up. I do expect the party and the coordinated campaign to work hand in glove on things like messaging, our mailers, and coordination of volunteers. But the coordinated campaign is going to have 3, maybe 4 statewide races, right? So we got our 3 re-elects, and then maybe our treasurer is going to be able to raise enough to buy into the coordinated campaign. That leaves 2 corporation commission candidates, a state superintendent candidate, and a mine inspector candidate that are going to be running clean and running their coordinated party expenditures through the state party and not through the coordinated campaign. The ADLCC is going to focus on 5 to 7 target districts. That leaves 25 to 23 districts that are going to be on the state party to focus on running up the score in blue areas and closing the gap in the red areas and turning them purple so that next cycle we can pass them over to the ADLCC. That leaves hundreds of school board, city council, county-wide races that the ADP needs to be providing that essential party infrastructure to support. So yes, the coordinated campaign gets those high-profile, flashy races, and it's going to make the accounting a lot cleaner than in previous years. But that leaves hundreds of other races for the ADP to play a vital role in. In addition, I'm expecting and hoping that the coordinated campaign is going to run their staff out of ADP headquarters for Maricopa, at least. There's no reason for them to get other offices. Like, we have office space, let's use it. And so I expect a close coordination with the coordinated campaign. Does that answer your question, Pat?
Well, kind of.
Okay.
One of the things that I run into, I'm getting emails all the time asking for money from every
Of course.
quarter.
Yeah.
And where do I give my money? Do I give it to Copper State? Do I give it to the Arizona Democratic Party? I think this is going to be confusing to people. I really do.
Yeah. No, and I hear that. I think part of what we can do is, and I'm hoping that we can start doing some coordination, like fundraising coordination as well, and maybe some joint fundraisers between the coordinated and the state party. Um, is that it's the question of the donor, right? Is your priority a particular candidate and a particular office, or is your priority the party infrastructure and having a medium to long-term outlook? So are you completely focused on one race in 2026? Or are you focused on the long-term direction of the Democratic Party and the Democratic brand here in Arizona? And so that's, donors make different priorities. And I think we have to make sure that we have as a state party, have a good pitch on why, donors have to do both. And, we're going to ask people to dig deep. So, if you ask me, Pat, which should you donate to? I'm going to say yes.
Well, I would assume that. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, any more hands up?
Not at the moment, but I do have another question for Joshua myself.
Sure.
I hate to pick at old scabs, but we've had a relatively traumatic experience over the past couple of months with the Democratic brand and the Democratic Party with our leadership change, which is basically why we're running chair in September instead of January. So, my question is, I guess, what questions have you learned from this past month's experience? What do you think the party should learn as a result of it, and what do you think went wrong? How did we get in such a poor position to begin with?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is the need for the Democratic Party to really embrace democracy. That for the longest time, we elected chairs, chairs who were very good or chairs who had like a baseline competence, and we just sort of fired and forgot about it, right? That's kind of been the story of America for the last 25, 30 years. That we've elected people, we've assumed that they've had a baseline competency, and we've just sort of left politics to the political nerds. And even within the Democratic Party, the state committee, which, as a member of the state committee, I recognize we're some of the nerdiest of the political nerds in the state. But even there, in many cases, they were like, we're going to elect a chair, and that chair, maybe or maybe not in conjunction with the board, is just going to handle things, and we can focus on whatever it is our priority is. Whether that's strengthening our precinct, our LD, our Democratic Club, whatever areas that was their really passion project, and they were like, and the state party's just going to run on rails, right? And after the disrailment that we saw over those 6 months, I think we've realized that we need to hold our chair to a democratic standard that we can't just take for granted anymore. And so, just like this is why every time I end an answer, I say, "Did that answer your question?" Because if not, I want you to hold me accountable, right? I want you to say, "No, you didn't answer it. This is what I want to know from you." And so that accountability, which is why, I ran for, I'm a vice chair. I ran on a platform of transparency and accountability, and I take that very seriously. I come from a profession where, some of this behavior that happened wouldn't just result in your being fired, but result in you're being prosecuted.
Yeah.
And as someone who had a beyond top secret security clearance, who dealt with some of the most sensitive information that our nation holds dear, I hold those same standards for myself in a political leadership position. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it gets to the meat of the matter. What I would like to follow up on that though.
Yeah,
The last
go ahead.
chair we had, let's say, what was it that she did wrong and right in your opinion that you need to emulate or avoid?
So, every other candidate for this race that I've been able to have a phone call with, there's one candidate who will remain nameless, but every other candidate I've had a one-on-one conversation with. And I said, look, We all bring great things to this race. I'm happy to sign this unity pledge that will hopefully we'll get to all the state committee members once we've given everyone an opportunity to sign it. I want to really focus on what I can bring to the table and how we can work collaboratively together as a democratic team rather than trying to throw stones at other people, including past chairs, including the most recent past chair. And so for me, I hear your question, and I think I would prefer to talk about what I can bring positively to the party, what I'm going to be helping our party do moving into 2026, 2028, and beyond, rather than focusing on trying to be a Monday morning quarterback or a backseat driver from someone who I don't know all the challenges that our past chairs faced when they sat in that role. So I hope that's a diplomatic and acceptable answer.
Yeah.
Well, I expect nothing else from a diplomat.
And then we have Stephen Leash has his hand up. Stephen, go ahead.
Joshua, you're probably in a good position to speak about the emphasis that the Democratic Party is going to give to the corporation commission races. It looked to me like you weren't very well supported last year. Is that going to be a priority?
Well, I will tell you one thing is that if as soon as it's clear who our candidates are, and especially if there's not a competitive primary, I am not going to wait until August to open up a coordinated campaign fund for any candidate who wants it, whether it's an LD candidate or a statewide candidate. If we're going to be doing coordinated party expenditures, and the candidate has a bunch of people that have already maxed out to their campaign and want to support more, let's bring those resources into the party. But I also think that we, whether it is a mine inspector who's going to be talking about union rights and helping to ensure the safety and well-being of this vital sector of the Arizona economy, and ensuring that instead of taking the side of mining companies, he's taking the side of miners, which is his damn job. Whether it's a state superintendent who takes the side of students and teachers and not the side of PragerU and people who are trying to just feed on our tax dollars and steal our tax dollars. That the state party has or the corporation commission, whose job it is to sit on top of these utilities and make sure that if they're going to be a public service corporation and have a monopoly granted by the state, that they actually treat their customers well. And these are all natural. If you're a pro-working class, pro-middle class, pro-union party, these are all natural areas where you should be able to, where the party can and should be vocally supportive of the candidates and their campaigns, and making sure that people know the vast amount of power that a lot of these elected offices have over their day-to-day lives. I just think to traveling out to, sorry, I'm having a little, it's in Cochise. There's a town that's got a private water company. And the water company got bought out by private equity. It was a mom and pop water company, got bought out by private equity. Private equity went to the Corporation Commission and said, we want a 1,200% price increase to pay for, basically they loaded a bunch of debt onto this water company so that they could get paid out. We want a 1,200% rate increase. Leah Marquez Peterson was like, oh, this is a great example. We cut their rate increase by 50%. They still got a 600% rate increase, right? You had people who were getting liens against their property because they couldn't pay their water bills because private equity came in. That acquisition probably shouldn't have been allowed by the previous attorney general and the previous corporation commission. So there are opportunities for us to talk as Democrats about what it means to have Democrats in charge of government, where we're fighting for you instead of the government fighting for the people that are screwing you over.
I still have a little bit of a question, a clarification, really. What is the unity pledge you've been talking about? What exactly does it entail?
Oh, sure. It's just a pledge that says, regardless of who wins the chair's race, I, as candidate, pledge to provide all political material and I forget, communication support to whoever the winner is.
Yeah.
And on that, you also mentioned that somebody or some buddies have not signed that pledge. Can you tell us who that is?
Oh, no. I just want to make sure everyone's actually seen it because it went out and I just want to make sure I have a phone call with everyone to say, hey, did you get a chance to see the Unity Pledge? Do you want to sign it? Yes or no? I'm not going to take silence for what's the opposite of consent? Silence for denial, right? I want to have a proactive yes or no before I put people's names out there. But
Cool.
you hopefully you will see the Unity Pledge circulated next week.
Let's give Joshua a big round of applause for a very energetic presentation.
Thanks for joining us, Josh, and thanks for making the effort of having us do this special session on a Tuesday to accommodate you.
I appreciate it. Thank you all.